Imagine packing your bags, boarding a plane, and moving to a beautiful new country. But instead of spending money, they pay you to move there. It sounds like a fantasy, but in 2026, this is quietly becoming a real global trend. Across the world, small towns are shrinking, young people are leaving, birth rates are falling, entire communities are slowly disappearing, and governments are starting to panic. So, some places have begun doing something unexpected. They're offering cash incentives, housing grants, tax breaks, and relocation bonuses just to attract new residents. In other words, they're paying foreigners to move in. Some offers are worth thousands of dollars, others can reach six figures. But there's always a catch. Sometimes you must renovate an old house, sometimes you must stay for years, and sometimes you must move to a remote village where almost no one lives anymore. Still, for adventurous people willing to try something new, these programs could open doors to an entirely different life. Today, we're counting down 10 countries quietly paying foreigners to move there in 2026. And some of these offers might surprise you. Let's begin. Italy may be famous for its art, food, and ancient cities, but many of its small mountain villages are slowly dying. Young Italians have moved to big cities like Milan and Rome, leaving hundreds of rural towns nearly empty. So local governments are fighting back. One of the most ambitious programs is happening in the northern region of Trentino. Officials there are offering up to €100,000 in financial support for people willing to move in and renovate abandoned homes. The idea is simple. Buy a neglected house, fix it up, and bring life back to the community. But there are conditions. The grants typically cover around 40% of renovation and purchase costs. And participants must commit to living in the home for at least 10 years. Leave earlier, and you may have to repay the money. Italy also became famous for another unusual program, the legendary €1 houses. Across several small towns in regions like Sicily, Sardinia, and Tuscany, local governments have sold abandoned homes for the symbolic price of just €1. Of course, buyers must renovate the properties. But in return, they gain access to stunning historic villages at a fraction of the usual cost. Some towns even add additional grants between €15,000 and €30,000 to help with renovations. It's not completely free, but it's close, and thousands of foreigners have already taken the chance. But Italy isn't the only European country offering incentives. Just across the Mediterranean, another village has an even more family-focused offer. Hidden deep in the mountains of northern Spain sits a small village called Ponga. It's quiet, peaceful, surrounded by forests and dramatic peaks. But like many rural towns in Spain, its population has been shrinking for decades. So, local leaders came up with a simple plan. If people won't move here naturally, why not pay them to come? Ponga offers €3,000 to any young couple willing to relocate to the village. But the incentive gets even better. For every child born after moving there, the town offers another €3,000 bonus. It's essentially a reward for helping rebuild the community. And for families dreaming of a slower life surrounded by nature, the idea can be very appealing. But Ponga isn't the only place in Spain experimenting with these incentives. Across the country, smaller provinces are exploring grants, relocation bonuses, and rural housing subsidies. The goal is always the same: bring life back to forgotten towns. Still, some offers go even further. In fact, there's a tiny island in the Mediterranean that's offering monthly payments just to live there. Far from the busy tourist islands of Greece lies a tiny place called Antikythera. Most travelers have never heard of it. And that's exactly the problem. The island once had hundreds of residents. Today, only a few dozen remain. At one point, the population dropped to around 30 people. That's barely enough to sustain a community. So the local government made an unusual announcement. Families willing to move to Antikythera would receive €500 per month for 3 years. That's about €18,000 total in financial support. But the incentives don't stop there. New residents may also receive housing assistance and food support to help them settle in. The goal is simple: bring new families to the island, reopen schools, revive the local economy. But life there is not for everyone. There's only one small shop, one medical clinic, and the nearest big city requires a long ferry ride. Still, for people who love quiet coastal life, the island offers something priceless: peace. But while Greece focuses on rebuilding small communities, another country is investing in something completely different: entrepreneurs. In South America, Chile has taken a unique approach. Instead of attracting residents with housing incentives, it's investing directly in entrepreneurs. The program is called Startup Chile, and it has quietly become one of the world's most famous startup accelerators. The concept is bold. Chile invites talented founders from around the world, then gives them money to launch their companies there. Selected participants can receive equity-free grants. Early-stage startups may get around $15,000. More advanced companies can receive grants of $70,000 or more. And that's not all. Participants also gain access to work visas, mentorship programs, and connections to investors. The goal is to turn Santiago into a major technology hub in Latin America. Of course, this isn't free money for doing nothing. Founders must actively build their companies, hire employees, and contribute to the local startup ecosystem. But for entrepreneurs dreaming of launching a global business, it can be an incredible opportunity. Yet some relocation programs aren't about business at all. They're about preserving entire communities. And one of the most fascinating examples is happening in Ireland. Off the rugged western coast of Ireland lie dozens of remote islands. They're beautiful, wild, and incredibly peaceful. But they share a common problem: people keep leaving. To prevent these communities from disappearing, the Irish government launched a program called Our Living Islands. The plan is ambitious. Anyone willing to buy and restore a vacant home on one of these islands can apply for renovation grants of up to €70,000. That's a massive financial boost, especially for old cottages that need serious repairs. But there are specific requirements. The house must have been built before 2007. It must be vacant. And it must become your primary residence once renovations are complete. In other words, this isn't meant for vacation homes. The goal is to create permanent communities again. Still, island life comes with challenges: fewer services, limited transportation, and a slower pace of life. But for many people, that's exactly the appeal. Meanwhile, thousands of miles away, another country is paying people to move into rural villages and help revive local communities. Japan is facing one of the fastest population declines in the world. Birth rates are falling. Young people are moving to cities like Tokyo and Osaka, and many rural towns are becoming ghost villages. So the government launched a program called the Regional Revitalization Corps. The concept is simple: recruit people from cities, and sometimes even foreigners, to live and work in struggling rural areas. Participants can earn around 3 million yen per year, which is roughly $19,000 annually. In exchange, they help local communities with projects like tourism promotion, farming, small business development, and cultural preservation. Assignments usually last 1 to 3 years, and some participants end up staying permanently. Of course, there are challenges. Learning Japanese is often essential, and rural life can feel very different from big cities. But for people looking for a meaningful adventure, it can be an unforgettable experience. And if you think Japan's program is generous, wait until you hear what one Swiss village offered. High in the Swiss Alps lies the small village of Albinen. Postcard views, fresh mountain air, and fewer than 250 residents. Like many alpine villages, Albinen has struggled to keep young people from leaving. So local officials introduced a dramatic incentive. Adults who move to the village can receive 25,000 Swiss francs each. That's about $28,000 per person. Families with children receive even more, Each child adds an additional 10,000 francs. But there's a major condition. Participants must purchase a home worth at least around 200,000 francs, and they must live in the village for 10 years. Leave earlier, and the money must be repaid. Even with the rules, the offer attracted international attention. Applications flooded in from around the world, proving that sometimes a little financial incentive can spark a lot of curiosity. Still, not every country offers direct cash. Some use creative tax incentives instead, and Canada has one of the most interesting examples. Canada has long welcomed immigrants. But some regions still struggle to keep young professionals. One of them is the province of Saskatchewan. To encourage graduates to stay and build their careers locally, the province created a program offering up to 20,000 Canadian dollars in tax refunds. This incentive applies to graduates who studied in the province and choose to live and work there after finishing school. The refund can be spread across several years, and the maximum benefit can reach roughly $15,000. But there's an important detail. This isn't a direct cash payment. It's a tax credit, which means you receive the financial benefit through reduced taxes over time. Still, for young professionals starting their careers, that support can make a big difference, especially in industries like healthcare, education, and engineering. But sometimes the most powerful incentives aren't cash or tax breaks. Sometimes it's simply affordable land, and one small town in New Zealand is offering exactly that. In the South Island of New Zealand lies a small town called Kaitangata. Beautiful landscapes, rolling green hills, and a surprisingly low cost of living. But the town has struggled with population decline, so local leaders launched an initiative to attract new residents. Their solution? Offer affordable house and land packages starting around 165,000 New Zealand dollars. For many international buyers, that price is almost unheard of, especially in a country known for expensive real estate. The town hopes new residents will fill empty homes, support local businesses, and strengthen the community. And life there offers plenty of perks: outdoor adventures, friendly neighbors, and a slower pace of living. But buyers must actually move there and become part of the town. This isn't meant for investment properties. It's about building a real community again. And if you think cheap houses are surprising, wait until you hear about the next one. Because in one European village, a home costs less than a cup of coffee. In northern Croatia, near the Hungarian border, sits the small town of Legrad. For years, its population slowly declined. Young people left, old homes were abandoned, and the town faced an uncertain future. So local officials created one of the most unusual housing programs in Europe. They began selling homes for 1 Croatian kuna. That's about 13 euro cents. Yes, 13 cents. But there are conditions. Buyers must be under 45 years old. They must not already own property, and they must commit to living in the town. Some renovation assistance has also been offered to help restore the homes. And surprisingly, the strategy worked. New residents began arriving, families moved in, and the community slowly started growing again. It's a reminder that sometimes even the smallest incentives can make a big difference. Across the world, something fascinating is happening. Countries are quietly competing for new residents, not with strict immigration rules, but with financial incentives. From Italian mountain villages, to remote Greek islands, to startup hubs in South America, governments are searching for people willing to bring energy, ideas, and life back to shrinking communities. Of course, these programs aren't perfect. Some locations are remote, some require long commitments, and many involve real work and responsibility. But they reveal something interesting about the future. In a world where big cities keep growing, some of the greatest opportunities might actually be waiting in the smallest places. So next time someone tells you there's no such thing as free money, remember this. Some governments are literally paying people to move. The real question is, would you take the offer?